Nephew in question is James. He'll be 18 in December. The other nephew and nieces in question are Cole and Melody and Bryony. My sister is the biological mother of Cole, Melody and Bryony. Their father died when the kids were 8 and 10. My sister married James' dad 15 years ago and she never formally adopted him but did raise him as her son. There was a lot of tension and conflict in the home and Cole, Melody and Bryony all moved out immediately upon graduating/turning 18. The relationship with my sister then ended. It also ended with James and his father. I stayed in contact with the three of them though and have always known where they are and that they are not interested in reconciliation. Ever since my sister took on James as her own, they have allowed him to believe she is his biological mother and that the other kids are his biological siblings, and it was only a few years ago I realized he believed they shared the same father as well. My sister and her husband have always encouraged James to believe that his siblings love and want to know him and that they will have a relationship one day. He has been craving that more in the last 2.5 years or so. He has mentioned it a number of times. Some family members and I tried to convince his parents to at least tell him the biological truth so he's not faced with it from people who will not care about cushioning his feelings or making sure he's okay. They refused. My sister said there is no biological truth. They are the parents and all four are their kids and it ends there. James has been talking to me a lot about finding his siblings and being excited to have them back in his life. He mentioned how maybe he could reconcile their parents and them too. And how he hoped to prove they were never replaced by him and that he knows it must have been hard to have a baby come into the family so much later. He believed that was what the estrangement was about. What his parents told him, I decided he needed to know after my sister and her husband refused yet again to talk to him. So I was honest. My sister wasn't his bio mom and his dad was not their bio dad. They were not blood siblings. I told him I loved him and it didn't make him less of my nephew, but I didn't want him blindsided by not getting the response he was expecting. He asked me if they would actually want a relationship with him. I told him no. He confronted his parents about the lies and the way they were setting him up. My sister called and told me I was an asshole and stepped out of my place by telling him what I did without her and her husband's consent. I can see my nephew, James, is struggling and trying to work out his head after the truth, and it makes my sister's words hit harder. Am I the problem here? We have two kids, Ava and Heather. We have a great relationship with both kids. About 12 years ago, Ava got engaged to her now husband. We bought them a house in our neighborhood and then the next year paid for their wedding. Heather has lived in a few different cities, taken different college programs, etc. She seems content to keep exploring where her happy is, and I think that's great. About 10 years ago, different plots of land came for sale in our neighborhood. We asked Heather which she wanted. She thanked us for the thought, but said that she didn't know where she wanted to be and that we shouldn't buy land for her. We ended up buying a plot of land near us. We told her, she again thanked us but never made use of the land. Fast forward to now, Heather approaches us, clearly nervous, and respectfully asked if we would be able to help her with a down payment for a house in the city where she lives. She was clear she understood if that was not possible. This has caused an argument between myself and my wife. I would love to help Heather, but honestly we are in very different financial circumstances now than we were before. We are hoping to retire soon, and do not have a lot of excess money. My wife thinks that Heather does not ask for much and that we have clearly helped one child significantly more than the other. Ava's wedding cost tens of thousands of dollars and the house was obviously hundreds of thousands. She thinks we should sacrifice whatever we can to help Heather. To be clear, we have financially helped Heather over the years, helped with decorations when she's moved, with furniture, etc. I know it's not the same, but I want to be clear we are involved in both kids' lives. I also know that Heather would be uncomfortable if she knew us contributing to her house was impacting our retirement. I think if we talk to Heather openly about the difference in our financial circumstances now and then, she would understand. My wife wants to sell the piece of land in our neighborhood to give Heather the money. I really don't want to do that. For a few reasons. including that I think Heather would regret that in the future because she has mentioned once or twice over the years that she will want to move back home when she's older. Prices for land here have gone up significantly. To be frank, nobody in our family could ever afford to buy here now or in future. Am I the asshole for not being able to give Heather the down payment? My wife is pregnant with our first bio child. We tried to have a baby in our 20s, went through fertility treatments, and nothing worked. This pregnancy was a huge surprise and is a high-risk pregnancy. My wife is 20 weeks now. My brother and Asael have 3 kids, aged 5, 8. Sister-in-law was pregnant again this summer and had a miscarriage at 21 weeks. They were obviously devastated and we felt awful for them. My sister-in-law talks about her miscarriage a lot, which is understandable. But it has been making my wife really anxious, so I first asked my brother if he and sister-in-law, can just stop bringing the miscarriage up in front of my wife. He said sure, and stopped, but Asael didn't. So I asked her too, and she said that she will try. She didn't stop. Yesterday they came to visit us with the kids to stay a couple of days for Halloween. At lunch, my sister-in-law said to my wife, 20 weeks now huh, I remember feeling the baby at 20 weeks. Sadly we lost him at 21 and my wife had a panic attack. We, wife and I, left the room, and I came back 30 minutes later and just lost it at my sister-in-law. I told her to just for once shut the hell up about her miscarriage. I feel like an ass, really. Am I the asshole? I gave birth to my son 18 weeks ago. My whole pregnancy was kept under wraps for the most part with the exception of my husband's parents and my sister. Husband's parents because our son is likely to be their first and only grandchild. My sister because she has always been my support person. The news of me having a baby did not go over well with my dad, his wife or my half-sister, so for people wondering why I kept it from them. There are 2 reasons. A few years ago I thought I was pregnant and had miscarried, but the truth was more complicated. I had not been pregnant but had some undiagnosed issues that had made my periods always irregular. I had 2 positive tests at home test and an inconclusive test at the DR, which they figured could be me having a miscarriage, but an ultrasound had revealed nothing but did show up some other stuff and more tests were done and diagnosis followed. I had been open about the positive test and when the truth came out my dad's wife was smothering. She told me that was when a girl needed her mom the most and she would not let me push her away like I always had. She married my dad when my sister and I were young and our mom had died, so she saw herself as filling that mom role, but she was too pushy about it. Even after all I had been through she would not give me space when I asked for it and my husband had to make her leave our home. The other reason is my sister has 2 kids. Through both pregnancies our dad's wife tormented her with talk of how she'd need her, as her mom, she needed to be there for her baby as she was experiencing pregnancy and talked about how becoming a mom would bond her to her and make her appreciate her in a way she never had before. My sister actually grew to despise her because of it. Neither of us were ever big fans of hers, but it really made her despise her because she was so sure she would fully replace our mom by being here for my sister's pregnancy. Even told our sister she was being dramatic when she said she missed mom and hadn't got the patience for her trying to force her way in. She said pregnancy makes women irrational and there's no reason to miss a ghost. My sister has not allowed our dad's wife to be known as grandma to her kids ever since. She had considered allowing it before the pregnancy stuff, but after the chance was gone and my sister would not hear arguments for it, all this led me to keep quiet when I did successfully get pregnant. I actually don't live super close to my dad anymore, so I just stayed away. I also knew it would hurt their feelings, but I honestly didn't have it in me to care. My dad was furious and his wife and my half-sister still send me messages about how cruel and unfair I am and how I robbed them of the excitement and tainted the whole experience. They both said how dad's wife becoming a grandma for the 3rd time was important, especially given her other grandkids will never call her grandma, and I was selfish to take joy from her. Am I the problem here? A girl at my school is a fat positivity activist on TikTok. She films herself eating, twerking, and making the fat on her butt jiggle for the camera while saying how in love with her body she is. She also says all the time that being fat is an honor and beautiful. This is important for later on. For a public speaking assignment in class, she wrote about how modeling should be illegal because the models in Fashion Week are skinny and tall, and they look like freaks and not like normal girls. And they make everyone feel uncomfortable watching them. The whole assignment was about speaking calmly and effectively, but she was speaking very angrily and aggressively. I'm pretty sure her whole speech was just directed at me because it's known at school that I walk in Fashion Week, and she was weirdly staring me down during the speech. For the audience counter-argument part, the teacher then asked me what I thought of the arguments since I walk in Fashion Week. I said I thought it was all pretty ridiculous. Of course, the girl and her girls came up to me and my friends at lunch and said that I'm eating fruit salad because I have disordered eating, which I don't. She then said you're only allowed to walk because you're tall and skinny, just so you know, in a derogatory way. I said and you're not allowed to because you're short and fat. What's your point? She yelled, and the mask is off. I was just waiting for you to show your bigotry and insult me. However, if being fat is an honor and beautiful as she always says, I don't see how stating she's fat is an insult or bigoted. I would be pissed if someone called me fat, but that's because I don't see it as an honor, and she supposedly does.